My name is Adela Cojab, and 6 months ago, I took legal action against NYU.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Every year, we hold a rave in the park just to celebrate Israeli Independence Day. But last year, student protesters took to violent actions.
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Israel or Palestine? Where do you stand? Most people know something about the conflict, but here's the brief version. At the end of World War I, the Ottoman Empire was divided. The British controlled the area, now known as Palestine, and promised the land not only to those currently living there, but also to European Jews. The territories were eventually established by the United Nations. But in 1948, Israel declared itself independent.
The establishment of the Jewish state in Palestine to be called Israel. Now an angry burst of shellfire.
And there have been many wars since then. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and Arabs were displaced. But that's not to say they haven't fought back.
The Second Intifada was more than 4 years of intense violence, killing at least 3,000 Palestinians and 1,000 Israelis.
Palestinian, Jewish, and Arab blood. This is a story about some of their descendants. 70 years later, 9,000 miles away, on a college campus in New York.
Anti-Semitism to me is discrimination and prejudice against Jewish people, both culturally, religiously, sort of in all its forms. I think it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. My name is Khalid Abu Dawas, and I grew up in a suburb of Southern California. So I'm half mostly Irish. My father is heritage-wise fully Palestinian, born on a Palestinian refugee camp. So he grew up extremely impoverished. My mother grew up on the Jersey Shore, so it's a stark contrast. The second my father realized I could understand was the second he started teaching me. I was taught from the get-go to be proud to be Palestinian. It was the first time where I had begun to truly understand what it meant to be something other than just Muslim. So I began educating myself on my own and very quickly became well-versed in speaking publicly about the issue. But there was a process of understanding Zionism, a long process of understanding Zionism.
My name is Adela Cojab. I am originally from Mexico City. My family is Syrian, Lebanese, Jews, and I moved to the US in 2001. Then I moved to a very small town called Deal, New Jersey. It's only Syrian Jews, extremely small, everyone knows each other. I grew up modern Orthodox. I have been to Israel many times. I've gone with family multiple times for bar mitzvahs. To me, Israel and Judaism are synonymous. I think that growing up Orthodox, you really see Israel in almost everything. So for me, because I grew up with this very strong religious backing, Zionism was a part, and continues to be, my Judaism. And I don't think, for example, that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic, but you can't say it doesn't have a right to exist. It currently exists. So that's why I will say that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
Would you consider yourself anti-Zionist, though?
Yes. I don't think the two are the same, which is like where people have problems usually. My argument is that Zionism is a political ideology that formed in the late 18th, arguably early 19th century, right? Judaism is a faith that's thousands of years old. And to say that they are conflatable is preposterous, just in their timelines. Continuously through history, there has always been an internal conflict in the Jewish community between Zionism and anti-Zionism. So to say that Palestinians or allies or Jewish people, which happens a lot, like, are anti-Semitic for being anti-Zionist, is just like intellectually and scholarly and academically just not on the playing field.
The more I study it, the more I see that the way that Israel's talked about on campus falls into a line that isn't criticism, it's anti-Semitism. I passed by them in the park and they gave me a flag. They were holding signs. I had no idea what was happening, but I said, I'm Jewish, I'll take a flag. When they started singing Hatikva, which is the Israeli national anthem, and I was holding my flag and I was looking at this group of strangers I had never before met in my life, I realized that that was my cause, that was my life, these are my people. And then came my junior year. And my junior year was the most complicated. I became president of Realize Israel, but at the same time I became the representative of Jewish students on student government.
At the time, I was really frustrated with SJP. I was like, listen, we've done a whole lot of education. We've done a whole lot of spreading awareness. Like, let's get to it. Like, let's escalate a little bit. Let's up the ante. Something I had noticed the year before was the Realize Israel rave that they were doing, the like independence rave. And after I saw it, I like pretty much set my eyes on it as like the thing to disrupt. And I was like, oh, they're all gathered in the park, like they're all partying, like A, this makes me sick to my stomach, and B, like this would be so easy to disrupt. We planned to do just a basic disruption. We're gonna show up, we're gonna protest, we're gonna see what the police presence is like. We're gonna essentially just do what we can without getting people in danger. A few of us were also interested to escalate it further. I was like, yo, what if we burned an Israeli flag? And at first, I'm pretty sure it was like a ridiculous suggestion that I just threw out there. And then I was like thinking about it. I was like, no, wait, we could definitely do this. So we gathered on that day. We put it to a vote. Like I had Amazon Prime 2 Israeli flags and some hydrogen peroxide. Majority people were fine with burning the flag as long as they weren't implicated. When we decided to burn the flag, the person who was definitely not supposed to be burning the flag decided to light the flag on fire instead of me. People at the rave were floored, like people were freaking out. Then we had another person who was not in NYU SJP who was just very pent up about and frustrated with the fact that Zionists were celebrating the establishment of Israel and the simultaneous evacuation and the forced removal of 700,000 Palestinians. 15 minutes later, I see this person with a baseball cap, like undercover in the midst of all these people raving, grabbed the mic, yelled "Free Palestine," dropped it, and just ran right towards us.
And suddenly she gets her arm grabbed, she gets pulled forward, and she gets a microphone taken from her hand. In the moment, it was chaotic. If you listen to the background, suddenly there's chaotic sounds, there's chaotic screams. No one really knows what's happening. It's Manhattan. Suddenly you see a commotion up front by the stage where the microphone is. You see an unknown male with a backpack. What do you think people's minds are going to be racing to? Thank God NYPD got in there to pull him out.
All right, like, there's no way the cops are going to believe that wasn't us. And a few minutes passed and we're still chanting, and I see the same person again in the midst of this rave, and they grab the largest Israeli flag of the entire rave and ran straight for us again. And at that point, I was like, that's it, we're all getting arrested. And people are riled up and everyone is all of a sudden on board with us escalating. So the flag is spray painted all over. It says Zionism is racism on it. The flag is getting torn up, cut up, and the wooden dowels are being used as noisemakers on the floor of the park. People dancing at the rave are like agape. They're looking at us like we're animals because it was just this raw, like, expression of just how much we hated Zionism, which is something I don't think those people had ever seen before. Then the person who had taken the flag hangs up the remnants of the flag on Park Light in Washington Square Park. I ask them to go take it down. And so they go and they start to take it down. And the second they start to take it down, police all of a sudden start moving in, grab that person, arrest that person, take that person away. And that was the second arrest of the day.
They had Palestinian Cultural Heritage Night 3 days before the rave in the park. Do you think anyone in Realize Israel in their right mind would show up with a Palestinian flag and burn it at their event, celebrating their cultural heritage? I would have been mortified.
So you don't feel guilty for lighting another nation's flag on fire?
No, not at all. It's not that I don't understand the discomfort. It's not that I don't understand the frustration they have. It's not that I don't understand its significance. Like if someone was to burn a Palestinian flag, of course, I would be bothered by it. My intention wasn't to just burn a flag to burn a flag. It was to capture attention. When we burned that flag, we said, it's not only that we're against Zionism, we're against the current state of Israel. Like it goes past the ideology. We're against the structural Zionism that's in place in the state of Israel.
I think that there's nothing more mortifying than watching a symbol of yourself engulfed in flames. And I'm standing that same exact night after the rave with my end saying, well, what the hell are we gonna do about this? You have to deal with the aftermath of a girl who was assaulted, and you have to deal with the aftermath of hundreds of students who watched an Israeli flag get burned?
It was very clear, abundantly clear, that NYU SJP was not this small little club anymore. That got the attention of everybody, from news media outside NYU to the NYU administration. All it took was the lighting of the flag.
After the rave, I show up to this town hall where there is very few Jewish students. The town hall was during the English date for Israel Independence Day. And towards the end of the town hall, someone asked a question to President Andy about NYU standing against BDS. When Andy said that NYU will never boycott the state of Israel, he was physically hissed at by fellow students in the room, most of whom were student government. I had never seen a group of college-educated adults hiss at another adult, but I guess that's protest. And after the event, I approached the administrator to speak to him about what had happened. And he said, "Where are your people?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, President Andy stood up in front of this entire room of hostile students who don't agree with his actions and stood up for your community. Where are your people? Today is Israel Independence Day. If you're asking where all the Zionist Jews are, they're outside celebrating Israel Independence Day because they're Zionist Jews. As I'm talking to this administrator, we get approached by one senator, then another senator, and another senator, then some students who are not senators. Next thing I know, there's a mass of students around us. First, they're focused on him, yelling at him as an administrator for the administration being fascist. At one point, he says, "I have a commencement speech to go to," and he dodges out of the circle, and suddenly the entirety of the circle turns to me. There were 2 rows of students, and the 3rd row were people on chairs looking in. There were actually people standing on chairs because there were so many people involved in this circle. And suddenly I was the fascist. People calling me intellectually dishonest. People actually saying that they're so glad that I'm a proud Zionist and that I'm a publicly proud Zionist, because in 40 years I get to look back and know I was on the wrong side of history, just like every SS Nazi officer that can never shy away from their past. The things that were said in that circle were among the worst I've heard directly towards me. In the circle, I was calm, but I felt small. I had never felt so small in my life. And I hope I never feel that way again. At some point, it died down. I dodged out. I called a friend, and at one point I just heard him say, "Where are you? Where are you? Adela, where are you?" And I hadn't even noticed that my legs had stopped working. They had given out. I was on the floor about a block north of Washington Square Park. I was in the middle of a panic attack. Immediately realized Israel came and physically peeled me off a sidewalk. I wasn't myself anymore. I didn't want anything to do with Realize Israel. I didn't want anything to do with student government. I wanted to be a student who was finishing junior year, about to start her senior year, and about to finish 4 years of college. And the only thing I could think of was the statement, "Where are your people?"
When I talk about BDS, that is the acronym that stands for the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, to boycott Israel and kind of economically suffocate it into compliance with, international will. So my name's Jordana Meyer. I'm a senior at NYU, and for the past 3 years, I've been on the executive board of Realize Israel at NYU. I grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland, in and around Washington, D.C., and for the first 12 years of my life, I went to Jewish day school, and all my friends were Jewish. We'd celebrate Israeli Independence Day like it was any other holiday, and it never crossed my mind that that was not only not normal, but not acceptable to some people. It never occurred to me that I would need the Jewish community for anything other than celebrating holidays. Looking back on it, if I were applying to schools now, and I saw what has happened at NYU, seriously consider crossing it off my list.
The BDS resolution came December 6th, 8 months after the flag burning in Washington Square Park. NYU student government voted for the university to divest from companies associated with the Israeli government. The resolution passed by only a margin of 2 votes. In response, NYU shot down the demand, releasing a statement. The university will not move forward with these measures.
The following semester, they actually brought the BDS resolution, and that semester, the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis pledged non-cooperation with Tel Aviv, and that semester, Bronfman was shut down due to threatening anti-Semitic tweets. So it was kind of one thing after another, and it just didn't let up.
One dude, one kid threatens Jewish people on campus, online, not in person, on a Twitter post, and an NYU building shuts down. It was a disgusting comment. It was anti-Semitic. But in terms of the university response, take out the seriousness of the situation that it could have been a real threat, and it is a joke in the comparison of how NYU reacted from SJP's reception of threats. By the way, we got 3 rounds of death threats. It wasn't just a one and done kind of thing. People literally threatened to chop SJP's heads off at their next protest. And President Hamilton told us he wasn't going to distribute the condolences. He sent us an email after we got death threats, or his assistant or his office did. And it was we're really, concerned about the safety for our students. By the way, we will not be sending out this email. You can send it out yourself.
In April, SJP was awarded the President's Service Award, one of the highest honors at NYU. Andrew Hamilton, president of NYU, did not attend. Days later, Hamilton wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. He stated that SJP's behavior has been divisive, and had it been up to him, SJP would not have received the award.
SJP members came in and lay down on the floor with names of Palestinian villages. So it was a die-in.
Die-ins are a way of civil protest. What's dangerous about this die-in is that it was a rave in the park. Our biggest concern was that no one got trampled.
We didn't know what to do. We obviously could not touch them. NYPD had told us that anything that crossed the line, jeopardized safety, or appeared to be a planned protest would be grounds for intervention. This was all three. It was simultaneous and they had pre-printed materials, so to say that it wasn't planned is ridiculous.
We were occupying space to disrupt the rave and to allow for the truth to come out, to show what Zionism is. The visual contrast between bodies laying on the ground and people dancing over them with Israeli flags. It's a clear image.
I didn't see anyone get hurt. I heard that people got stepped on. There's 2,000 people dancing in a small space and you're lying on the ground. It's very possible that someone got stepped on.
We had people step on us and kick us, intentional or not, right? It came with the risk of being on the ground, but still, there were some instances where it was very obviously intentional. I got a lot of comments I did not expect. Things like, oh, like he looks like Osama, like he looks like a terrorist. There were other people saying, oh, he looks like he's gonna blow up, like careful, like back up, he might blow up. Literally like shoving like Israeli flags like underneath my glasses. My wife had an instance where someone was trying to entice their dog to step on her.
It was really disappointing. It was even more disappointing and to me vile the way that they spun the story. My friend and I went around, we distributed water bottles to each of the protesters lying down.
My train of thought was, it's been 2 hours, it's hot, we've been outside, I'm thirsty. They've been laying on the ground for 3 because they came before the event started. I said, hey, it's Adela. Don't be alarmed. I'm putting a water bottle by your head. Let me know if you need anything, if you're hungry or thirsty. I felt someone chuck a water bottle near my feet. They just said it's Ramadan. I thought it was a genuine act of kindness. At least that's how I intended it. And suddenly they spun it off as if the nefarious Zionists are taunting Ramadan.
There was a divide in the folks who were at the rave. There was someone, I think it was Jordana, who came around trying to giving us water. She didn't realize that it was Ramadan, but she was passing around waters to people who were dying in. There were some Realize Israel people who were saying, don't bother them, let them do their thing, they have a right to protest. And then there was the other group, which was consisting of some Realize Israel members, I believe, and some other people who were racist, who were just really disgusting.
When you have a large-scale event that's planned by students, we only have a certain amount of reach. We can only go so far. And I don't think that that's on us. And I apologize, I guess. But I'm not the one that laid on the floor in the middle of a party.
Adela Cojab is suing New York University over allegations of anti-Semitism. My name is John Kallas. I'm a sophomore at NYU in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm majoring in Middle Eastern Islamic Studies. I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia, which is close to Washington, D.C. Every summer until I was 9 years old, we would spend about a month in Syria, usually for the most part in Damascus with my mom's parents. Lawfare is a very common tactic used by supporters of the State of Israel or Zionist activists.
Do you know that she's currently suing NYU for fostering anti-Semitism on campus?
No, I don't. But like, I think that's pretty freaking incredible that like she's suing NYU for promoting anti-Semitism. Mostly because from my perspective, it looks like the opposite.
And what does the administration do? Do they take this seriously?
So that's actually a great question. Those 2 students were arrested by NYPD and let off without bail, but the administration, for some reason, doesn't seem to be doing much against it.
At the end of her senior year, Adela Cojab filed a lawsuit against NYU.
Over the last 2 years, NYU's Jewish community has faced ongoing harassment,
calling for action against anti-Semitism on campus. Because of her lawsuit, Adela was invited to speak at the IAC National Summit in December.
But sadly, BDS has also made disturbing headway on American college campuses. You know that, don't you? Here with us today is Adela Cojab, a recent graduate of New York University.
Its Jewish community from
Adding to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VI now explicitly mentions anti-Semitism as a form of discrimination protected.
You know, I really just thought that they wanted people to stand on stage. They said that's probably harmless, so sure, of course, I'd be honored to. And then they called me the next day, Wednesday morning, the day before my flight from the White House, asking if I was expecting their call. And that's when they explained that I'd actually be speaking if I wanted to. And, you know, I thought about this even more, and I said, this is obviously a polarizing figure, the most polarizing figure in our country. And, you know, I'm not a U.S. citizen, and I made it clear to their staff I wasn't a U.S. citizen. If I were able to be given a platform to a national and international level, why would I not take it? Not only was there a Jewish student on stage with the President of the United States, it was a Syrian, Lebanese, Mexican, female Jewish student. I think that that's unreal, and it's an honor that it was me.
I have really mixed feelings. The fact that there is an executive order addressing this at all, to me, is progress. And I'm not going to smack it down and say we should do nothing rather than do, you know, an imperfect thing. Do I love the idea of a friend of mine, you know, being introduced by and endorsed by Donald Trump? It makes me deeply uncomfortable. But my response to people who criticize it is, do you have something better? Because I don't. I mean, people should know that filing a federal lawsuit was not her first resort.
It's a very common thing, like lawfare, in the arena of Israel-Palestine. If NYU gets sued for anti-Semitism, and the verdict is that SJP is an anti-Semitic club, which I do not believe, then suddenly SJP is not a club that's allowed to exist at NYU.
It doesn't stifle free speech at all. The line between free speech and harassment has already been drawn. You can be racist all you want, you can be anti-Semitic all you want, but if you cross the line into harassment, there's a law against that.
One of the first sentences of the lawsuit literally says, SJP is not, as they claim, a grassroots student organization. It is a terror-affiliated anti-Semitic network that currently operates with autonomy and impunity at colleges and universities across the United States. So one of the first things it does is say that SJP is a terrorist-affiliated organization, which once again, this language of terror and terrorism immediately not just comes off as Islamophobic, but it is Islamophobic. The second that you throw that word at an organization, especially an organization talking about Palestinian liberation, it's immediately a racist and Islamophobic dog whistle. I have family who have been refused tenure at universities because they are vocal about advocating for Palestinian human rights. Any non-white person, but especially as an Arab, puts you at a specific position where you can get attacked, where you can get blacklisted, where you can get refused employment opportunities or application opportunities.
Justice! BDS! Free Palestine!
John's fears are not unfounded. Many American activists are documented online, in websites like Canary Mission. When I last spoke to Khalid, he was concerned that his profile would prevent him from visiting Palestine again. But what is Canary Mission? It's a mysterious website that doesn't disclose who or what contributes and funds it. Profile pages track a complete social media footprint. While traveling with NYU, Khalid was deported from Israel. He was among 60 other students, including his wife. They were attending a school-sponsored trip to Palestine.
So the first 4 hours, pretty much the entire group got stopped. So everyone was just sitting like in a corner in plastic chairs next to the customs office. I started getting interrogated after about hour 4 or 5. And then while I was being interrogated, they gave everyone their visas, including my wife. So when I had come out of interrogation, everyone was gone. I've been interrogated and questioned by Israeli forces many times, but it was the first time that I was physically affected. I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't catch my breath. I was freezing, even though it was warm. This interrogator is really pulling at me for information and asks me indirect questions, and then when I don't answer them, she threatens to throw me in jail. Essentially told me, she was like, if you lie to me, not only will I deny you from this country, but I also will throw you in prison. Meanwhile, For all I know, my wife is in the next interrogation room over getting grilled, right, on her first time visiting the region. Like, this is the first time I've been under interrogation and not been able to hold myself. I'm being, like, actively traumatized by these security forces. In all likelihood, they knew they were going to deny me the second they saw my Canary mission profile. And they were just grooming me for information. And they were just scaring me so bad that way I wouldn't come back. I get out of the interrogation room, I'm taken into another office, I'm fingerprinted and photographed without being told what's happening, and he goes, just so you know, you should have been told already, you're being denied entry into Israel. And so I'm left, I'm the last person in the waiting area. It is wildly early in the morning at this point, and I'm just waiting to be extradited. And an hour later, I get escorted to the gate with an escort, essentially, who is holding my passport and this official file, and all the way into the seat at the back of the plane. All these different groups of people are currently staring at me like a war criminal. They're like, who is this guy? Why is he being escorted with us? I watch my home movies on the plane to JFK. I land. I'm the last person to get off. I'm signed into American custody, and I have my brother-in-law pick me up, and I go to New Jersey to stay for a week. One of my most loved places in the world, a place where I have made friends and experienced loss and really found myself as an individual, because it being one of the few places I can identifiably say that I'm from, a place where I'm viewed as indigenous, a place that I physically belong, is that opportunity is erased. And it was decided by, what, a 23-year-old security officer? And some 40-year-old dude from the Ministry of Interior? They're the ones that are given the authority to deny me access to my Holy Land? Just like, it just doesn't make sense on an emotional scale.
To grow up steeped in your culture and your history is to be rooted, not brainwashed. You know, I want to be a public defender. I want to abolish the death penalty in the United States, but I'm also going to serve in the IDF as a soldier next year.
Conflation of Judaism with Zionism and Israeli identity is an extremely dangerous thing. It's my duty as a non-Jewish person to be able to relay that information to other people.
To know that this type of activism is so far-reaching, despite it being 9,000 miles away. By denying me access, they only strengthen the cause. What a more encouraging statement could be made.
This is the biggest stage you can ask for. This is the most eyes you can ask for. And I realized that if me being up there inspired even one student, then all of it was worth it, and I did the right thing.